Hello and welcome to today's Partner Academy Live webcast. You are listening to Time to Thrive webcast series, Hitting Your Sales Targets. Today, welcome to the fifth of our 12-part monthly webcast series to help you win in the new economy, compete to win, hit your sales targets, and thrive in our mobile world. Join us on the second Wednesday of every month at 8 a.m. Pacific for a new session dedicated to improving our sales performance, your sales performance. You can also participate on Twitter Live at #TimeToThrive3. Now, without any further delay, it is my pleasure to introduce your speaker, Kendra Lee. Kendra Lee, she is the president of the KLA Group. She is also a WPC speaker and an author. So now it's my pleasure to turn the floor over. Kendra, you now have the floor.
Well, thank you, Debbie, and hello, everybody. Thank you for those of you who are staying up late in Europe to be here, and those of you who got up really early from the West Coast. It's a great pleasure to be here and to be talking about hitting your sales targets. And in 2012, it seems like everybody's talking about how to make targets. And the reality is this, of course, is the time of year when your managers are saying, okay, here's your new quota. How are you going to make that quota? Show me your plan. But, you know, the things that we're going to talk about today are not limited to the beginning of your year. For many of you, this may be the start of your year. For some of you, you're on fiscal years, so you could very well be in the middle of your year or in your first quarter. The strategies that we're going to talk about, these apply at any point. If you are behind in making your goal and you're trying to figure out how you're going to get there, if you want to exceed it, you've already made your goal and it's the middle of the year and you're thinking, wow, how far can I go? Let me put a plan in place to really excel. These same strategies work. So I hope that you find some that really will fit what you're trying to accomplish in your year and where you are in your planning. And we'll look at the 6 steps to achieving your goals. But before we do that, I would like to get your feedback or your input. Is your 2012 sales target higher, lower, or the same as last year? So far, 100% are saying higher, which of course is the trend. Every year your managers, or if you happen to be a business owner, all want your targets to be higher. But it looks like we're coming in. You can all see that. So about 80% of you are higher. Only 4 or 3% of you now are the same, and 14% of you don't have a sales target. Now, it is not uncommon not to have a sales target, if that was your response, but it is important that in your mind you have your own personal target that you want to achieve, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. All right, so let's jump right in and look at what are the 6 steps to super sales success. And I can share with you with confidence that if you follow these steps, and I'll read them to you in just a moment, that if you follow these 6 steps, you will not only hit your sales target for the year, you might even exceed it. And I have used these, clients of ours have used these, other sales reps have used these steps to make their numbers, exceed their numbers, and achieve their goals. So the first step is to set your vision. The second one is to create your success plan. You know what your vision is, what's your plan to get there, and then of course we have to execute on the plan. Well, another key piece is to practice consistent and constant lead generation. And then my favorite is follow up, follow up, follow up. Too many salespeople get the leads, but then they forget to follow up. So we'll talk about that one. And then finally, to understand and nurture your customers. And we're going to look at each of these, some in more depth than others, but I want you to know, how do you use these 6 steps to set yourself up for super sales success? So the first step is to know what success looks like to you. We're all given a revenue or a margin objective, whether it's by our boss, or if you're the boss, by your board, or even by yourself. So for those of you that said, oh, I don't have a sales objective, you know in the back of your mind you really do. So all of us have some type of objective in place. But what we need to know is, what's our vision? What is it that we want to accomplish? Because it's really hard to buy into a goal that somebody else sets for you. You know, we're in January, so we're hearing all about dieting, and you've heard that the last thing you need is somebody else to set your goal for you on if you're going to diet, what weight you have to get to, that you have to buy into it. Well, the same thing is true of setting an objective for yourself from a sales perspective. Whether you want to call it a quota, a goal, or an objective, it's really got to be your vision. So consider some questions. You know, what's your goal for 2012? Why do you want to accomplish it? What do you want to accomplish? Do you just want to make your quota objective? Do you want to exceed it? Why do you want to do that? What's your motivation? Because it's the motivation that will keep you working toward that objective. Your vision of success might be a financial goal, or it could be a different goal. You know, at different points, people want a promotion, or a new house, or they've got a child who's going to college, or they want a cool vacation. It could be any number of things. If your goal is not a financial goal, you know you still probably need the financial goal to get there. So financial success is required to achieve it. So you want to think about, all right, what do I need to earn in 2012 that will get me to my vision? And that really becomes your objective for the year. That's what you're really selling for this year. The most important thing is to be honest and realistic with yourself about what you can truly achieve. We can all say that we want to earn 6 figures. We might even say we want to earn in the high 6 figures. But how realistic is that? And what do we have to sell to get there? For some, it could be very realistic. For others, it could be a huge stretch goal. So to make it motivational for you and something that you truly believe you can do, be honest and realistic with yourself. So once you've determined your personal vision of success, then you can create your success plan that will help you to achieve that vision. It all starts with the vision. Create the vision, now we can create the plan that will get us there. So here's another question for you. Which of these resources are not part of a sales success plan? Tell me which of these you think are not part of a sales success plan. So I've got you guys jumping around between forecasts and discounts, but only a few of you have responded, so it's okay. Take a moment. So we've got the majority saying discounts and a couple of other people saying forecasts, account plans, maybe even prospecting. The answer is discounts. While discounts may be a strategy that you employ to win some sales opportunities, you really don't want them to be the core part of your success plan. On the one hand, they cut into the company's profitability, but from your perspective in sales, whether you are paid on margin or revenue, what actually happens is that discount reduces how much you earn per sale. So it actually requires you to work harder every single time you give a discount. So you absolutely want to use them when it's necessary to win a particular opportunity, but you don't want them to be a central part of your strategy in your success plan. You'd much rather sell on the value, if you can, and have to sell less to achieve your goal or your vision than if you include discounts. They just cause you to have to work too hard, selling more than you should need to. So make them part of your opportunity strategy when necessary, but they're not part of your sales success plan. Okay? However, forecasting, account planning, prospecting, and alliance partners absolutely are all key strategies in your plan. You have your vision, and now we want to put that plan in place. And what I wanted to show you is you actually have components of it already being done because your managers require it of you. So you don't have to sit down with a blank page in Word to try and figure out what is my plan. No, we've got core components of it that we're doing. Now what you're going to do is turn them from being something that you do because your boss requires it of you into a tool that helps you achieve your sales targets. So forecasting is for you, and account planning and prospecting are for you. And you're going to show them to your manager because they're asking them, but you're going to use them as tools for yourself. So let me show you what I mean. Forecasting is actually your roadmap to monthly quota achievement. And I really like forecasts because they keep top of mind with me who are the people I'm supposed to be working with, especially if you have forecasted out a month or two or three, because you're looking at it going, oh, wow, I forecasted this one company for next month or for the month after, and I haven't got anything on the calendar to talk with them. I need to get back with them. So forecasts keep you on top of all of your opportunities. Yes, they're a tool for your managers to see what you're going to sell, but they help you know, are you moving forward toward what you need? Analyzing, when you get your forecast, you want to analyze it based on your personal success goal. So if I want to overachieve, or I know I need to sell a certain amount in a month, maybe I need to sell $30,000 in margin every month, or $50,000 in margin every month, or your number could be much higher, especially if you're selling software. But I can analyze the forecast and see, do I have enough in there? Where are my gaps that I need to figure out where they're going to come from? So your forecast is a great tool. It keeps you on top of who your prospects are, and then or who your opportunities are that you want to go get, as well as identifying where your quota gaps are. And once you know what your quota gaps are, that's when your account planning and your prospecting come into play. You're going to use your account planning to help you identify where do you have growth opportunities in top accounts that you aren't talking about yet. Because a core piece of your account plan, as you know, is to figure out what's our strategy to go after those accounts. Okay, so that's what you're really doing in your account plan. It's your strategy on how you're going to further penetrate an account and how you're going to get additional mind share in the account. And usually you do it in your top accounts, maybe your top 10. But you're going to use that as a core piece of your strategy. And then for all the other accounts, what you want to do is choose 4 categories of growth opportunities that you could go after. So you always want to have a plan in place for those smaller accounts. And this is a simple way to do it. Maybe you're going to focus on ensuring that they all have, let's say, backup and recovery plans in place, or that they renew their maintenance agreements, or perhaps you're going to talk to all of them about Microsoft Cloud 365, and you want to get a portion of them converted to it. So what you want to do is think of 4 growth categories and focus on one during each quarter in 2012 with these smaller accounts. And before you know it, you'll be making up a portion of your quota gap by focusing on your smaller accounts, and at the same time you may be growing them into larger accounts. So account planning is a core piece of your success plan. And then, of course, there's prospecting, because when we identify our quota gaps, only a portion of it will we be able to envision coming from our existing accounts. The rest may come from prospecting. So as you plan your prospecting activities, really plan them. And in a minute, I'm going to show you 3 different strategies that you can use and give you ideas behind each of those strategies. But what you really want to do in your prospecting is create a plan that includes setting aside some time each week that you will prospect. Now, I used to do all of my prospecting activities on Wednesdays when my only role was a salesperson. And I made sure that I didn't schedule any other meetings on Wednesdays because I knew I had to keep my pipeline full. I actually had a very high new business development number that I had to make every year. And so once a week, I had an entire day that I set aside. And on that day, I made calls, I sent emails, and I was assured then that I had at least 8 hours of prospecting every single week because I had that Wednesday reserved. Okay, so set aside a specific time for you. It may be it's a couple hours every day. It may be it's half a day a week. It may be there's one sales rep that I'm coaching where he does half an afternoon on the phones, and then he has half a day where he actually goes out and does drop-by calls because in his community that's something that he can do. So he has a full day set aside, but he's got them on different days actually doing different activities. So think about what works best for you and set aside that time and honor it for yourself. And then if you've heard me talk before, you know how important I say it is to have micro segments that you are focused on. So identify micro segments, niches of prospects that have similar issues that you can address. What that does is it makes your prospecting much more efficient because you can call and have a similar phone conversation with them. Your emails can be similar to all of them. So it's like you're doing the work once, but you're using it across many different people in that micro segment, and you become very efficient. Your conversations are even better because you're talking about the same things with people, and you're learning from different people, and you're saying, oh, yeah, I was talking with ABC company, and this is the issue that they're having with their backup and recovery, or we were talking with this company, and they're looking at the cloud for these reasons. And yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but here's what they were thinking on why it helps their business. So you can leverage those discussions. Or, oh, one way that a company was really managing all those different documents and that issue of having lots of different versions is they're actually looking at a central repository like a SharePoint. Right? So all of a sudden, we can have similar conversations across our micro segments. And then the last thing I would tell you is know what are your top 3 prospecting methods. What works best for you? What do you like to do best? One method that you might choose could be calling. A lot of salespeople that I talk to, they still like calling. And frankly, you have to pick up the phone at some point. So cold calling may be yours. Another one might be email, because that's extremely popular right now. Or it could be that you're going to do social media direct messaging, or you're going to conduct events to reach lots of different people and get your message out there. Or it could be networking or asking for referrals. Whatever it is, know what your top 3 prospecting methods are. And I say 3 because you may go through a period where nobody's answering the phone. So, yeah, we still want to do calling, but it's not working right now. So now we need to move to email. Or maybe email isn't working, so we should try running some events. Okay, so have 3 different methods. That way you've got a fallback if something doesn't happen to be working at a specific point in time. Okay, we're going to talk more about prospecting in customer and new accounts in just a minute, but I wanted you to realize that these are the 3 core pieces of your success plan. And guess what? You're already doing them. So what we're doing now is if you prepare to win and you plan to win, then you are one step closer to winning. Okay? So that's the bottom line. Prepare to win, plan to win, and you will be one step closer to making that sales target. And here on slide 11, you can see that it's not enough to just prepare to win and plan to win. You have to execute, and you know that. Planning isn't automatically going to make you a winner, and that's true. So in your execution, rather than talk about the importance of execution, because we all know that, what I've done is I've put together for you 4 different questions you can ask yourself to see what might be holding you back if you aren't executing. You know, when we're coaching salespeople individually or in teams, a lot of times what comes out is, you know, Kendra, I really don't like to make cold calls. Or, gosh, we've got all these different things that are happening, and there's just never any time to prospect. So recognize that if you're not executing, there's something that's holding you back. And these are 4 questions that you can ask yourself to help you figure out what is it that you need to do differently to ensure that you are executing, to help you get over that roadblock. And we're providing you a PDF. You can also print a PDF of this. So I'm not going to go through all of what I have here, but I'll just read the questions to you, and then I've given you some ideas under them. So think about, how are you going to organize your day or week to maximize your selling and prospecting time, like I just talked about? How are you going to avoid time-wasting activities or requests? If any of you have dual roles, because it's not uncommon to have a sales role and then a piece of a technical role, boy, it's easy to avoid doing your prospecting because you've got lots of other things going on. Or if you have a lot of customers, it's really much easier to handle that customer sat situation than it is to make 10 prospecting phone calls. Okay, so how are you going to avoid those time-wasting activities? How are you going to hold yourself accountable to being consistent? And then what 3 metrics will you monitor to demonstrate that you are on your path to success? And I've given you some ideas of metrics that you could monitor. But the key is, if you prepare to win and you plan to win you have to execute. So make sure that once you've done all the work to put that great plan in place, that you execute on it. It's what will help you make those targets. The 4th step in your super success plan is practicing constant and consistent lead generation. You need new leads coming in the door consistently throughout the year, and you want a lot of them because you just never know what customers will be going out of business, which we're seeing a lot of, which ones will be merging, which we're also seeing a lot of, which ones will move to a competitor away from you, or otherwise drop your service because they can't afford it any longer. So add that to the fact that our challenging economy is causing prospects to slow down in making their decisions. Then we've got slower sell cycles, so our sell cycles are extending. All of that means we need constant and consistent lead generation so that we're continually adding new prospects to our funnel. Now, the wonderful thing about lead generation is that once you begin and you plan it into your day, your week, and your month, and your year like we've been talking about, you will have leads coming in consistently. And if you keep it up, not stopping for natural interruptions like quarter end, month end, year end, then you'll have a full pipeline of new opportunities from customers and prospects all the time. You will actually be able to step back and relax because your plan is working for you. You figured it out. You're in a rhythm, as one of our clients says. They want to get in the rhythm of prospecting and lead generation. And once you do that, all of a sudden, you've got prospects coming from all sorts of different places. Just because you are doing cold calling, or you are asking for referrals, or you are doing email prospecting, or you are out there on social media, they see you in all these different places, and all of a sudden, prospects and customers are coming to you because you've turned it into a key piece of your plan. You're in the rhythm. Now, I told you that you should choose your top 3 approaches for prospecting and lead generation. What is your number 1 preferred lead generation approach? What do you prefer as your number 1 approach? You might want to call or stop by personally, so do what I call drop-by cold calling. Send emails, send letters. There are a lot of people that still send letters because there are still microsegments out there, industries that don't use email. You might like to hold events, request referrals, or even send social media direct messages. So as we look at this, let's see. We've got 23% who are saying call or stop by personally. We've got our highest one is holding events. And you know what? That's my very favorite one. I love events because when you do an event, you're demonstrating your expertise, and prospects, actually they spend an hour with you while you're in that event. They get to ask you any questions. They learn about you. You start to build a relationship. They see the credibility, the expertise, the trustworthiness of your organization, and they share a lot of information. So to me, events are fabulous. So we've got events at 31%, and now email is our highest one. Emails is another one that's a favorite of mine because it's so hard to reach people. I believe that you always need to call. You can't give up calling. But the question is, when do we put calling in our prospecting? Do we lead with calling, or do we lead with sending an email? Do we lead with events? Do we lead with sending letters? And interestingly, look, none of you said send letters. That's really interesting because we still find a lot of solution providers and VARs are still sending letters. We've got 3% of you that said your preferred request or your preferred method is referrals, and then 6% of you are doing social media. So I'm going to talk about email in a little bit. I won't talk about it right now, but I will say that has, as I look across all of the companies that we're working with and all of the salespeople, email has become the number 1 preferred approach for lead generation and prospecting, just because it's so easy for people to respond to click through to links, etc. And then it's followed by calling. That's the second most preferred method that we are seeing. Great. Well, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, and hopefully you're writing down your questions as we're going, so don't forget to write those down. There are a lot of prospecting approaches that you can use. I just listed a bunch on our poll. You could be doing calling, whether it's cold calling or warm calling. You could be sending emails. You could be sending letters or postcards. You could be conducting events, doing referrals, or social media messaging, social media commenting to attract prospects. Any of these approaches you could be using, and you can be using combinations of them, which I actually recommend. You want to choose the approach that's most comfortable to you and will be most successful in your region. So while you may love, let's say, email, you have to look and see, will that be successful in the territory that you are covering? As I mentioned, some industries don't use email, so it might not be. You may like sending letters because you may feel those are great. I have worked with sales reps who love letters because they know a prospect can file it away, And when a prospect has that need, they can go to their file and see what they've collected in their file. The challenge is, how many prospects do that anymore? And that's a long-term strategy. We want our prospect to file it away and call us when they have a need. Well, if I've got an empty pipeline, I got to move faster than that. So if I was going to use letters, then we need to combine it either with an email follow-up or a phone follow-up so that we can get leads faster. So look at not just what is comfortable for you, but what will be successful for you. Okay? All right, so let's look at 3 lead generation strategies that will generate consistent leads for you with minimal effort. The first one is email. As I mentioned, this has become the #1 prospecting approach and the #1 lead generation approach if we want to separate sales from marketing. To be successful in email prospecting, you want to start by identifying that microsegment that I talked about earlier, looking for groups of people who have a similar issue you can solve. The most common microsegment, of course, would be an industry, but it could be based on company size, within a certain geography, and 2 specific titles. So it doesn't have to be an industry. It could be all companies that have 25 to 75 employees. Let's say you're selling managed services and your target market is small to mid-sized companies. If you're selling SharePoint, it may be companies that have multiple divisions and multiple locations because we know that they're going to need to do a lot of document sharing and they're going to have dispersed IT potentially. So look at what your solutions are and identify microsegments of people who have similar issues, and you want them to be issues that you can solve, because it doesn't do us any good to focus on issues they can't solve. You know, social media is hot right now. We've had a number of clients that have run events around social media, and they've gotten people who come, but they don't sell anything that does anything with social media. They may be managed services providers, or they sell SharePoint, or they're selling Cloud 365. And so, you know, they have to work really hard to make a link to social media so that they can get leads from it. So focus on issues that your microsegment has. And then what I would tell you is don't send just one email. Create a 3-email campaign focused on that issue that you've identified, because it's so easy for them to delete the first email. They don't recognize your name. They don't recognize your company name. They're busy. Whatever the reason, the email was too long. They could delete it. So you want a campaign of 3 emails, okay, so that you are touching base with them over time, not just once. And then I would suggest that you integrate phone calls in there as well. Offer to share a valuable idea related to that issue to get them to want to talk to you. And in your email, suggest a time to discuss the idea by phone. Make it really easy for them. If you suggest a day and time, they can go to their calendar. They can look and see, can I meet at that time? And then they can reply to you and say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't meet then, but I could meet at a different time. Yes, that absolutely happens. Prospects will do that. Or they can look and say, oh, yes, I could meet. And it sounds, I would be interested in talking about your idea for 15 minutes. And boom, you've got a prospect scheduled on your calendar. And then when you're sending your emails out, I call it a campaign because I said create a 3-email campaign. You're sending it to a group of people who have a similar business issue. Keep your group small. Your salespeople, you've got lots of different things that you need to do. While you could put together a list of 100, 150, 1,000 people, the reality is if you're going to make this work for you, at some point you have to call people. So you want it to be a manageable number of people that you're going to call. You may be calling to do follow-up. You may be calling everybody who clicks through to a link that you provide. You may just be calling people who respond, but you need it to be a manageable number. So my suggestion for those of you who are in sales as your primary role is keep your list less than 50. And frankly, we have salespeople that their lists are less than 25, or it's a list of 10, and we're going to have a list of 10 every week or every other week. Our objective is to be able to execute on our plan. If we make it too big, we can't execute. Okay, so keep your list manageable. So that's my first strategy for you to generate consistent leads. The second strategy is warm calling, not cold calling, because that can be hard and it can be intimidating to a lot of people. But let's do warm calling. End all your email campaigns with 3 follow-up calls. Now you've got a reason that you're calling them. You're calling because you sent the email, you've got an idea that you wanted to share, you wanted to see if we can spend 15 minutes together talking about that. So end your email campaigns with 3 follow-up calls. Just like you can't send just 1 email, you don't want to make just 1 phone call. So plan that you're going to do 3 follow-up phone calls and space them 3 days apart. That means that feels like you're not hounding, but you are being diligent in your follow-up because you have a great idea that you want to share with them. So you're going to do 3 emails followed by 3 phone calls. That's 6 attempts to try and reach a person. Now, if you were to take our prospecting course, I would tell you you actually need 9 attempts. So you may want to continue with your emails and your phone calls if you're not being successful with your 6 attempts. Because in our experience, we've found that it can take as many as 9 attempts to reach a prospect. So know that you could expand that out. When you call, mention the email and that you have a valuable idea. Suggest a time to talk just like you did in your email. You may have to pick a different time than you did in the email because that time may have passed. And then my favorite, and we all use Outlook because we are all with Microsoft, send a follow-up calendar invitation. You leave a message on the phone, and here's what it sounds like. You've talked about your value proposition, and then you said, I have an idea I'd like to share with you about that. By chance, are you open Tuesday the 24th at 10 o'clock? And I'll go ahead and send you a calendar invitation in case that's an easier way for you to respond. I look forward to our conversation. Thanks, John. Done. Okay? So it's that simple. I'll send you a calendar invitation in case that's an easier way to respond. And then send them an Outlook calendar invitation. Put a 15-minute reminder in it. Put that you will call them. So in the subject line, say, Kendra will call John at, and I put John's phone number in there. I have to tell you, we absolutely have had prospects who accept the calendar invitation but never replied to an email and never replied to a phone call. They were too busy. People are too busy. So use calendar invitations. I think it is one of the hidden secrets of prospecting. So if you can be bold, do it. And for those of you who are listening outside the U.S. and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I couldn't do that, you absolutely can. We have salespeople in Europe and the Middle East who use it. We have salespeople who are in China, in Singapore, in Malaysia who are doing it. So this is worldwide. You are making it easier for your prospects to connect with you with your calendar invitation. Okay, enough about calendar invitations. The third strategy to generate leads is asking for referrals. We all know this one, and yet we forget to do it. So ask for referrals from all of your customers in your top micro segments, as well as if you're working with prospects and you've been working together for 4 months or so, ask them for some referrals. Question them to find out how they think you can help somebody that they're referring you to. Engage your service technicians to ask for referrals. They're talking with your customers all the time, either over the phone or they're out on site. Have them ask for referrals. Who else should we be working with that you know? Who else like you that should we be working with? It's that simple. These are simple phrases that you can teach people. Use your email campaign and warm up your calling of the referral so that you can make it easier to connect. Okay? And then send a calendar invitation to schedule that appointment, just like we've talked about. The thing is we all know to ask for referrals, but we forget. The more consistently you ask your customers and the prospects that you've been working with longer for referrals, the more used to it they will get. The first few times they'll say, I don't know. But as you continue to ask, they will start to think about it, and they will have people to offer you. So absolutely, this is one of those strategies you can use to generate consistent leads. Now, let's talk about customers for a minute, and then we're going to we're going to move into our questions. Here are 5 strategies for you to with your customers. And the key that you want to do with customers is build a brick wall around them. You want to protect yourself from them going to the competition. Go back and look at your proposals for things that you suggested that they did not decide to do. Check in with them and see what can we do in those proposals. Should we be doing these now? We didn't do them in the past. Plan a virtual or a local site visit so that they can learn more about what you do. A lot of your customers only use a small percentage of your solutions or your offerings. And if you have a virtual or a local site visit with them, you can talk about these are all the things that we're doing. They can meet the president virtually for 5 minutes. But this is a great opportunity to just get that message out about all the different offerings that you have and what the direction is that you're going. And it may pique interest in other areas. Give them testimonials and recommendations so that they feel like they're really partnering with you. And then launch a nurturing campaign for your B and C clients. We talked about in your plan choosing 4 different categories of your solutions that you would like to basically upsell your B and C clients in. We talked about that for account planning. Well, now create a nurturing campaign related to those using the emails and the calling that we just talked about for prospecting. And you can nurture them along in those areas, just informing them of those different categories that they may not be aware of. And then connect with them on your social networks. Follow them. Retweet them if they're on Twitter. Comment on their LinkedIn. Be in some of their discussion groups. All of these will keep you close to your customers with minimal effort. And the key is to follow up, follow up, follow up. This is a big one for me. A lot of people forget to follow up. And so you don't want to be one of those. Make sure that you're using your CRM system to know when do you need to follow up with someone and do it. Do what you say you were going to do. Now here I have a quick polling question for you. Are you thinking about what questions you want to ask? Yes? No? Because in just a moment, I've got only 2 more slides. I'm going to open it up for questions. So we've got a high percentage of you saying, yes, you're thinking about your questions. So if you haven't written them down, write them down now. You can put them in the Q&A at the top. All right. And so our 6th and final step in hitting your sales targets in your success plan is to understand and nurture your customers. As salespeople, we know we're supposed to do this, but the reality is only the top sellers do it well. And that's why they realize super sales success. So learn about your customers' businesses and make a point of understanding their needs from a business perspective. Share ideas and recommendations that will help their business to be more competitive, to generate more revenue, to control their costs, and just in general, grow. Be ethical and honest, And then, like we just talked about, follow up. Follow up on your commitments and meet their expectations. If you can do just this one step with your customers, they're going to appreciate you. Your relationship with them will grow, and then combine that with that reliable follow-up that we just talked about, and they're going to want to do more business with you. I know it sounds simple, but many sellers forget how important truly understanding and nurturing their customers is to their success. If you are the one who remembers, your customers will not only continue to buy from you, but they'll buy more and they'll give you referrals. So we have just covered the 6 steps to super sales success that will help you achieve your targets. And as I promised, if you do these steps, you will hit your targets. And I have some accompanying resources for you. Everything that I just talked about is actually in Chapter 1 in my book, Selling Against the Goal. That's number 2. So if you want more around lead generation strategies, the book is all about how can you hit your sales targets with lead generation. And it's written for sellers. So everything that's in there are things that you as a salesperson can do. So you might want to look at that out on our website. We also have the Sales Action Goals e-tool, which I put together to allow you to track how are you doing against your targets based on your goals. And it's a great, simple tool that you can use. So I would encourage you to absolutely download that from the site, and we're going to tell you where you can get it at the end. And then I've put out there 2 articles on 8 steps to reach your goals and the top 3 sales resolutions. Just gives you more to think about how you can put together your plan. And then we also have a bi-monthly newsletter and a weekly sales tip. In the newsletter and the weekly sales tip, we give how-to sales and lead generation strategies every time. Everything that's in there is how can you do things even better. And for our subscribers to our newsletter and our weekly tip, we actually have a webinar coming up that gives you even more depth than I talked about on the email. So if you liked what I talked about on the email prospecting, we have a webinar coming up called The New Rules of Email Prospecting, and it's free to all of our newsletter or weekly tip subscribers. So if that's something that you would like to attend and you want to know more about what I talked about, go sign up for the newsletter and sign up for the New Rules of Email Prospecting and come, because I'm going to actually rip apart different prospecting emails to show how you should change them and how email prospecting has changed. So now what I'd like to do is let's turn it over to questions, and hopefully we have some questions that you have asked. So let's see. Anthony, I think you're going to be managing questions for us.
Yes, I am. And so just a reminder, in order to ask a question, you can go up to the Q&A pane and simply type in your question and then click Ask. All right? And we have a couple questions already that have come through. The first one is, when calling the 3 follow-up calls, do you leave a message every time you didn't reach them in person?
That is a great question, and I am a proponent of leaving a message. I feel like if you don't leave a message, you've actually wasted your time in trying to reach them. Now, here's the exception. If you try to call multiple times in a day, clearly only leave one message. And then I get people who say, oh, I wouldn't dare do that because they might have caller ID and they could see I tried calling 5 times. Well, if that's the case, then as part of your message, just say, I'll try calling you back later today. And then if they happen to look and scroll through who's called, they'll see that you tried a few times, but you already said you would do that in your voicemail. So to me, yes, leave your voicemail. It's basically the same thing that you will say in your email, and you're going to talk about how you have an idea that you want to share with them, and that you would like to just have a quick 15-minute conversation to share that idea. Okay, so definitely leave a voicemail. Don't waste that valuable call that you've made.
Great. The next question we have is, what's the best way to get the database of companies /contact?
Okay, so for companies, there are a lot of different places that you could go to get contact information. The more common ones that you will have heard of would be to go to data.com, formerly Jigsaw, or Net Prospects, and get lists there. You may get lists from associations. They're always the best lists because members maintain them themselves. You could go to social media and do a search, say in LinkedIn, looking for certain types of companies, get a list there. It won't have emails, but it'll certainly have the contact names of the people that you would like to reach, and then you could use social media to try and get with them, or you can do more research to get email information as well. And that's like a whole session all on its own that we could talk about. So those are just some different strategies that you can use to get lists. Microsoft may also have lists that you can go to, so you want to check with your marketing resource at Microsoft and see if you can get lists from them. So there are lots of different places to go to get lists.
All right. And next person wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about email phone scripts.
Absolutely. So my recommendation when you are prospecting is to divide your territory between your microsegments that we've talked about and your top prospects. There will be top companies that you absolutely would like to be doing business with, that you want to have as customers. And for those, you are going to create specific value propositions that you will use for email and calling. Okay, because you're going to go do some research on them, and you know why you want to gain access, and you're going to look for a way to get in with them based on that research that you do. And that's something we talk a lot about when we teach consultative selling, because you're being very specific to that particular prospect. Okay, so set that one aside. Then the other side is microsegments. With the microsegments, you're grouping people into common segments. So they have common business issues. They're probably the same title, so they have same responsibilities. They are probably similar in size. So you can approach them all similarly. For those, yes, you can create a voicemail script. You can create an email template that you use. And I am a big proponent of a voicemail script in that you've written out about what you want to say, so you've organized your thoughts. You're not going to read it when you call them, but you've organized your thoughts such that it'll be top of mind, and when you call, you'll sound very professional and you'll hit all the key points that you want. For email, I absolutely believe you should create a template of based on that issue that microsegment has. And we teach that a lot when we teach our email power prospecting and our email lead generation. So I believe in those because I think they make you more effective.
All right, and we've got another question. In a cold calling situation, is it necessary to avoid the gatekeeper? And how do you exactly target the right decision-making customer contact during that initial cold call?
Oh, great question. You know, we have a class that we teach. It's a 9-part one on prospecting, and we have a whole session on gatekeepers. And the reality is you don't need to avoid the gatekeeper. There are 3 different types of gatekeepers. The most common one that you're probably thinking of is the assistant to the decision maker that you're trying to reach. Well, you can use your value proposition with that assistant, and you actually can ask the assistant for an appointment with the decision maker. So you don't need to talk to the decision maker. If that assistant keeps their calendar, you could ask them to schedule an appointment. So you're going to do all the things that we know about as salespeople. You're going to want to try and befriend them and talk about, use your value proposition. So why do you want to talk with the decision maker? You might even share the idea that you're going to talk about, or a little bit about the idea that you're going to talk about with the gatekeeper to get the appointment through them. So I don't think you should avoid them. I think befriend them, be very professional with them, and use them to your advantage. And then how to target the right decision-making customer contact. When you get the gatekeeper, you might say, this is what I want to talk about. Is John the right person for me to be speaking with? So just ask. The other thing is calling. If they have a receptionist, depending on the size company you're calling, call and talk to the receptionist, because they can be very, very helpful. And you can say, I'm thinking I need to talk with John. This is what I'm calling for. Is he the right contact? And they might say, oh, no, you need to talk to Sally. So that's one way. The other is, of course, you can do social media research. And there I would say start with LinkedIn and go and read profiles of people to see, does it look like this is the person that has the responsibilities that I would need to talk to. Okay? And that's all assuming that you know who the right contact is to approach for what you are selling. But there are some tips for you.
And the next question actually gets a little further into social media. They ask, how do you start with social media? Do you need a blog? Just message them on LinkedIn and Twitter? Is Facebook okay?
So I'm assuming that we're talking about from a prospecting perspective, not from a marketing lead generation perspective. So from a prospecting perspective, you want to be on LinkedIn. I suggest that you be on Twitter, because you can do a lot of cool research out on Twitter about your prospects. Do you need a blog? No, you don't need a blog. One of the biggest mistakes as salespeople we often make is that, oh, I can't do certain things because I don't have certain resources. The reality is we still have a number we have to make, and we have to work with what we have. We may not have marketing materials. We may not have a blog. We may not have other resources, so we're just going to make do with what we have. So let's just accept that we'll make do and start with what's easy. On social media, I'd make sure that you're on LinkedIn. Make sure that you're out on Twitter. Facebook is harder from a prospecting perspective because it's personal, and you have to be connected with people. You have to be friended to actually send them direct messages. You can do research on their Facebook fan page, but it's harder to actually connect with a prospect there unless you can friend them. So for prospecting, I recommend LinkedIn and Twitter. LinkedIn is great because you can send direct messages. You can do research and find out what discussion groups prospects are in or your microsegment is in, and you can start participating in those discussion groups. When you start participating, you'll get people from the discussion group who send you connections, and you can send direct messages to people. You can reply to people's comments, so you really can be quite visible through LinkedIn discussion groups. In Twitter, it's really nice because you can get connected with your microsegment and reach people that you maybe didn't even know were part of your microsegment. So that's just like 2 minutes of an entire module that we normally do on social media prospecting, but it gives you something to start with.
Okay, we have another question. How to sell our solution against a solution which is having real good features and support. Vanessa's budget will be available with the customer for our offered solution. So let me know if you need that.
Let's see, how to sell our solution against another solution. So the other solution has great features and support, and then us as budget will be available with the customer for our offered solution. I don't completely understand what you're asking. I see that they have really good features and support. It sounds like they have better features and support. And what I don't understand is, are you selling it as yours is cheaper? So I don't really know how to answer that. If you want to clarify it there, you can. And I'm not sure, I know we're going over our time. Do we want to take some of these other questions to our LinkedIn discussion group?
And it looks like that's a yes.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and wrap it up. So if you want to say your closing.
Right.
Sandra?
So for anybody who did not get to ask a question, there are two ways that you can do that, or I didn't answer your question. We have the LinkedIn discussion group. You can go put your question out there. I will be monitoring it and responding to questions there. If it's something that you're not comfortable doing on LinkedIn and you'd like to email me privately, you can do that as well, and you have my email address here. And I'm going to go forward on a screen so you can see. Here's my LinkedIn contact information as well as Twitter, Facebook. So feel free to connect with me and reach out to me via email directly if you want to. And hopefully you will go sign up for our newsletter and come to the email webinar that we're doing on the new rules of email prospecting. So thank you, everybody, for today. Use these 6 strategies, and you absolutely will make your goals in 2012 if you follow through and execute. So I look forward to staying in touch with all of you. Thank you for coming.
Okay, and what you should see now is the survey. Please take a moment to fill out the survey. Simply type in your email address to access the questions. It helps the presenters as far as feedback. Continue the discussion using our Sales Specialist group on LinkedIn after the webcast, where Kendra Lee will continue to answer your questions. Microsoft Sales Specialist is pleased to give each of you who registered a free e-tool provided by Kendra Lee and the KLA group. Post-event, just log into the Sales Specialist dashboard. A pop-up will appear with instructions on how to download the e-tool. It's a one-time download. Thank you for your participation. This concludes today's Partner Academy Live session. All materials from today's presentation will be available internally on the Academy website within 48 hours. Partners, you may access the webcast recording through the PLC in approximately 48 hours as well. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenter team, and we'd like to thank you for joining us and logging in today.